Hello, this is Sam Visnick, neuromuscular therapist from endyourbackpainnow.com, and in this video clip we're going to talk about something a little bit more removed from the lower back. We're going to work our way up the spine and looking at misalignment of the cervical spine, which is essentially the neck. Now, I get a lot of questions on the realignment procedures for things such as forward head posture, in particular when individuals are suffering from some type of chronic condition in the neck, such as a bulging disc. So in terms of understanding what to do in these types of situations, a little bit of information is necessary here. And as I've talked about in previous videos, it's important to look at the structure of the spine itself. And when we look at the spine, we notice some interesting features about it, and the most important feature in this video anyway is that when you look at the spine, you see that it is not a straight column, that we actually have many curvatures in the spine. So we have an inward curve happening in the lower back. We have a forward curve, so if you were standing facing this way. And in the neck, we also have that extension curve again. Now, based upon this, we see that these various curves are going to enable the spine to move in a particular way. And for the purposes of being able to move and perform daily functions, these vertebrae need to be able to move in units together to be able to produce multiple different dimensions of movement. So for example, the spine, if it does not perform just a straightforward bending and an extension motion, okay, the spine can also create combinations of forward inflection and rotation to the right or rotation to the left, just as well as it can go extension, rotation in either direction. So why I'm bringing this up is because if an individual has a disc bulge, in particular going into one direction, so let's say, from the front view here that there is a disc bulge going posterior, which is to the back side, lateral left, that if it's not bulging on the right side and it's bulging on the left, the question is, why is it bulging into that direction? It makes sense, obviously, if there's been a trauma or an impact that would cause the disc to go that direction. However, in many chronic circumstances, there has been no such impact, but the disc bulging may be the result of chronic muscle imbalances or habitual poor posture. So when we look at this, the correction procedures may not be as simple as a simple extension procedure to help move the disc back into alignment, as mentioned in previous videos for like the lower back. Especially when we're looking at the neck, where the neck is infinitely more complex, because we have the upper cervical unit, the jaw and the face interacting with all of the reflexes up here, that in many times that combination motions will be necessary in order to assist with the correction. Now, due to the fact that this is very individualized, I can't really show a lot of those on the video here because for each person it's different. But it is a very good idea to show the basic correction here for forward head posture, which is a straight-on retraction drill. So what is forward head posture? Well, essentially forward head posture is that what we call vulture neck. The head sits too far forward relative to the rest of the body. So from a side view, if I had a forward head posture, it would look essentially like this. So that we see that the bone here in front of the face is too far forward relative to the sternum bone here. So the farther it sits forward, the more strain we have on the neck. You can see that the neck has to extend because if the head sits forward, you would look straight down at the floor. So in order to make the correction, you have to extend your head looking straight ahead. And you notice that in this motion, not only is my head dropping, but usually in forward head posture syndromes, you'll also see a marked rounding of the upper back. So the upper back is slouching down and forward. So in this situation here, we're creating a load of compression in the lower segments of the cervical spine because now gravity is no longer dropping through where it should, which is through the hole in the ear called the auditory meatus, but instead the head is now moving forward and gravity is dropping down through the lower portion of the cervical vertebrae and the upper portion of the back. And this can create that dreaded dowager's hump, that rounding of the upper back, in which case you can build a lot of muscle on top of that and it just looks like a big lump. Okay, so the first step to making corrections in the neck is actually making corrections with the upper back. So if I'm in a forward head posture position, if the first step is to imagine that I have a hook placed underneath my sternum, and this hook is lifting me up to the sky, watch what happens to the forward head posture. So if all I do is just pull my chest up to the sky, you'll see a natural retraction in my head. Now, it may not be enough to get a full correction, but it's enough that when I lift my chest up, my head begins to move back. And you can see that the lower portion of my neck, about C5, 6, 7, and T1, 2, and the third vertebrae start to flatten. They start to lift and move back into position. So now no longer are they getting a tremendous amount of shearing forces because of the amount of extension and compression that's going there. We're actually starting to deload them. So I've lifted my chest up, that starts to move C6 back on C7, and from there I'm a little bit more upright. You can see that my head position is still not ideal in this situation.